I think that 9/11 was a wake-up call. It alerted Americans in general to the fact that two oceans on either side of us could not insulate us from the rest of the world.
I think 9/11 really did kind of like put multicultural education on the map and really kind of make us, or make me at least, kind of more passionate about teaching acceptance and tolerance.
I do believe that all Americans need to expand their knowledge of the world, and that's the best way to fight all kinds of extremism.
¿De qué color más o menos es la corteza? ¿Es marrón o es negro? Más o menos. ¿Ojos o son ojos?
Italian, French and Chinese are taught in the same way, and the school is thinking of expanding the approach to PE.
No, ojos. Ojos. ¿De qué color es tu luna?
Rosada.
Ah, es una luna rosada. Muy bien, excelente, señor. ¿De qué color es tu pájaro?
Rosada.
¿Es rosada o rosado?
Rosada.
Es un pájaro.
Rosado.
Muy bien, excelente. Muy bien. We're terribly monolinguistic, and because English is basically the universal language, Americans already speak that, they don't really feel this need to learn about other languages and hence other cultures as dramatically as they might.
Tom Coleman also makes use of Hispanic songs, soap operas and newspapers, so students get really immersed in the culture.
I try and really let them know that, well, we're not the only people in the world, and they need to have some idea that there are other cultures out there, as well as some things are explained a little differently from language to language. So if you remove a whole language, you remove a whole thought system.
It's a dog with funny ears and funny tail.
Entonces es perro conejo.
I felt that it was kind of important to learn Spanish in America because many people from Mexico come to America and they learn Spanish, so I felt it would be nice to be able to speak to a lot of people from different countries.
My parents always used to speak Spanish at home, and I could barely understand them, so I thought taking it would, help me a lot.
Art is probably really fun for a lot of students, so it makes Spanish more fun for them to learn.
I want to learn as many languages as I can.
The head of the language department recently set up a link with a school in Caracas, Venezuela. Such international links are even more important since September the 11th.
I think that 9/11, one of the biggest things that it brings to national attention is the incredible need for people who speak different languages. It's still, unfortunately, a very controversial thing in this country. Obama just mentioned it in one of his speeches, the importance that he thinks that everybody in this country should learn another language. And people got upset. People misinterpreted. People thought that was saying, maybe English is not so important. Other languages are important. No language is any more important than any other. But it is important to know more than one so that we're not just always talking to ourselves. We're communicating to people around the world, and we're able to understand different feelings and different perspectives. And a lot of conflicts come about when you don't understand other people's belief systems and perspectives.
If I could open the door and invite John McCain and Barack Obama to come here just to this class with the 20 of you, what would you suggest that they do? They're now, don't forget, they're going to be conducting U.S. foreign policy. They're going to be conducting U.S. military defense policy. What would you suggest to them?
Blow them up!
13-year-olds in 8th grade social studies have no hesitation discussing foreign affairs.
We worked very hard to get where we are today.
Right.
And for just saying, oh, I'm not gonna like anymore, go away, it's very hurtful to the other countries. And so when, I don't know, if we all come out of the war and then they bomb us, we don't have any backup from other people.
I really disagree with Corey completely because I'm sort of pro-peace.
Yes.
And also if you went and bombed every single country that you don't get along with, then is anybody still going to be alive? And plus my cousin is my cousin is in the army in Iran, and he's the only boy in that family.
The U.S. Army or the Iranian Army?
Iranian.
Okay.
Because you're forced to go into the army, but since he's the only boy, he's only going to go into war if somebody declares war on them.
I believe our students are pretty sophisticated. Because this is a pretty ethnically diverse community, they begin to pick up on the fact that there is more to the world than just their own little circle and their own little reality. And I think because of that, I can use that as a teacher to help me have a better lesson. I can go into some details and explanation of things. You know, it goes all the way back to the elementary school. They're doing these kind of things in the elementary school. They're doing it in the high school, and we're just one step along the way.
Some countries don't even want our help. We're just doing it.
Like what country, for example, doesn't want our help?
Like Iraq.
What did we do that sort of kind of makes them need us?
Attacked them and conquered them.
We conquered them, okay? We conquered. The United States of America, acting alone, invades Iraq. In this case, we acted alone and just said, you know what, we got to take out this guy, and we got to go in there, and we got to get rid of him. Who was the guy we got to get rid of? Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein. Okay, so getting back to this question, because this is a big part of the question. Should the United States be going around the world taking over all of these? Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Well, maybe.
Maybe?
Yes. Maybe.
Yeah, how could the United States do it in a peaceful way? I ask a lot of guided questions. I really believe in asking questions rather than just tell them everything. You ask a lot. You ask the same question, but you ask it a lot of different ways and try to guide them to come to some general kind of understanding. Make them think critically and say, oh, he wants to hear what I have to say. And I think that does matter. I think a 13-year-old kid wants to be heard.
Over at Herrick's High School, there are over 1,400 students aged from 14 to 18, from over 60 different cultural backgrounds.
I know a lot more about different cultures just because we're all so diverse. Like, I feel like I'm part of pretty much every culture I get to experience.
I have friends who go to schools in New Hampshire and Florida in less diverse states, and they don't get the same kind of education.
I think it's definitely important to learn about other people, because if you don't learn about anything else about other people, you'll never get a true taste of what's really out there.
Learning about other cultures has brought me closer to those other cultures, so I don't feel secluded at all.
Discussing the Israeli-Palestinian conflict was always hard because, as opposed to my old school where it was solid pro-Israel, here we have people of all different perspectives.
After 9/11, it was clearly important that students not only understand the world, but how the world sees America.
One of the things we focused on in schools, as I'm sure many citizens did, is why do people hate us? Why do people in the world hate Americans? Like, how could there be people cheering in parts of the world that this tragedy happened here? And I think it forced us to look at our history and how we're perceived in parts of the world, and how people perceived things that we have done as a nation. And so I think it really, it forced us to be more reflective and about perception, certainly about how we're perceived, and also about what we actually have done as a country.
Our goal by the end of the period is to actually have passed a resolution on Millennium Development Goal 8, Global Partnership.
Students are debating economic development as members of the African Union. Chloe Grafe introduced the Model UN course where 10th and 11th graders learn to debate as UN delegates.
Motion to enter a moderated caucus for a duration of 10 minutes with a 30-second speaking time.
I think that is in order. Are there any seconds to a moderated caucus? Okay, so our moderated caucus is open. You can discuss either working paper, but please indicate which working paper you are discussing so everyone knows what you're talking about. Okay, all those wishing to speak, please raise your placards. Madagascar, you have 30 seconds.
Madagascar believes that Working Paper 1.2 does not provide ways to actually get fair trade and all the African nations to come together. It provides what they want to happen, but not how they will achieve it.
Mauritania completely disagrees with the previous speaker. Resolution 1.2, as you see, is completely comprehensive in what it's trying to address. It addresses the two main issues that must be acknowledged in order for MGG number 8 to be accomplished.
About 6 weeks ago, they had no experience with Model UN at all. And so the fact that they were able to be this articulate, I really feel that was a learning experience that helped their public speaking skills, their ability to think on their feet, their ability to synthesize very complex information very fast, and then also the challenge of being an African nation, dealing with the challenge of how to be part of the global trade network.
With the current economic crisis in the global community, we think that it's going to be very difficult to convince any country to start trade with these what seem like unstable nations.
Students are frequently asked to see the world from a challenging perspective.
Say if I have a student whose background is Israeli, I would give them maybe Iran as a country. And that's one of the things that Model UN can provide an opportunity where someone is forced to actually see the other side of an argument or a position that they've never had. So I do think that the idea of spreading a kind of culture of what I would say international literacy, in a way, or global literacy of the complexities of issues is really important.
Maybe I would also like to note that right now is a crucial moment for Africa to gain stability, and that because the world is in crisis right now and the world markets are doing so poorly, if the African nations can show their strength at a moment like this, then the developed countries will be much more likely to trade with them in the future. And
thank you, Delegate. We will vote on each working paper one at a time. Bearing that in mind, we will begin with voting on working paper 1.1. All those in favor, please raise your placards of 1.1. 1, 2, 3. You know, the goal is to come out with a workable solution rather than to win. And I really like that. So a win is I've got the most people to agree with me and I've negotiated something, which I think is a really fantastic lesson in life. By a vote of 13 to 10, 1.2 has passed. You can applaud. Well done, you passed your first working paper.
The class are preparing for a national debating conference where they'll be representing the Democratic Republic of Congo.
I'm researching female genital mutilation for Democratic Republic of Congo, and it's actually a really, really crazy topic. It's really disgusting, and the fact that I have to read about it, go in depth about it, know every little detail about it, all the policies about it, it's just really, really overwhelming because I didn't know that this was happening in the world.
in researching the Democratic Republic of Congo, I learned that it was the biggest war since World War II, and there's almost nobody that I know at least knew about it.
I've learned that most NGOs out there, they're actually corrupted and they're not doing the job that the country wants them to do. That was really fascinating because I wondered, why would they do that?
It helps build confidence, and it helps you negotiate with people and be able to persuade people to see your point.
I'm learning also how to listen to other people more and understand what they're saying and answer and give feedback to that. And you can apply that to real life as well.
This class helps us become global citizens of the world, and it's really good because you should know exactly what's going on in the world, because in the end it might just affect you.
From elementary to senior level, the global perspective at Herrick's infuses the study of virtually all subjects and has become a model for other schools.
If I can even plant a seed about being a good citizen, locally and globally, then I've done my job. I just need them to know that it's important, that you can't take things for granted.
If I can begin to make them understand that Herrick's United States is a part of a global community, and the fact that Herrick's is a global community, it just brings that home.
I personally believe very strongly that the best way to fight any kind of violence in the world and intolerance is with information and with discussion, and that's what my classroom is for.
9/11 is a constant reminder that the USA isn't isolated from the world. More and more American schools recognize that global citizenship isn't just an option, but a necessity.
I think the biggest single thing that we can do for our children, individually and collectively, is to give them the tools and the knowledge that they need to change the world. What's really going to change the world is people who can solve tensions, develop mechanisms for people to work out differences of opinion in other ways than either war or terrorism.